Spring has sprung here in the UK and a lot of our wildlife starts to return after the cold winter months. Plants like daffodils will start springing out of the ground, and a lot of our native wildlife that's been hibernating or dormant over the winter will start to slowly appear again. Now, a lot of you are probably like me and you live in what's known as an urban area. An urban area is a built-up area with lots of buildings and a high population density. Unbelievably, 56 million of us live in urban areas in the UK. That equates to about 83% of the population. Because of the constant expansion of these urban areas, wildlife has been forced to live alongside us, living in our gardens, our parks, and even sometimes within the cities themselves. Foxes roam the streets at night looking for any scraps of food they can get. Pigeons and seagulls flood our town centres picking up the crumbs from our food. And songbirds, ducks and squirrels have been pushed to a few small areas like our local parks, which I'm in today. Unfortunately, due to this urbanisation and habitat destruction, our native wildlife is really struggling. So it's really important, especially this time of year as it begins to warm up and our wildlife will come out again, that we try and help them in any way we can. So today I'm going to be discussing a few of the ways in which we can help urban wildlife here in the UK. My name's Adam and welcome to NatureScope. First of all, I want to talk about something which we mentioned a lot on this channel, and that's garden modification. So let's head over to my garden and I'll show you what you can do to help the wildlife there. One of the simplest changes you can make to your garden to help wildlife is add bird feeders, bird nesting boxes and insect hotels. These give birds and insects a safe place to rest, breed and feed throughout the year. They're really cheap to buy now and you can maintain them for just a couple of pounds a month. So let's have a quick look at some and the benefits they have. Bird feeders provide a varied, continuous source of food all year round. This becomes really important in the late autumn and throughout the winter, where food isn't readily available in places like our parks, so it gives them a sustainable, regular place to come and feed. The longer your feeders are there, the more the birds will trust them, and that means you'll get a variety of wildlife coming into your garden. So not only does it benefit the birds, it also benefits you by giving you a little more colour and life into your garden. You can pick up bird boxes for just a couple of pounds at some of our bargain supermarkets. They don't cost very much, and if I'm honest with you, it's unlikely they'll be used. If you know you've got birds nesting in your garden, it might just be worth putting some out. It gives them a second safe option to breed and lay their eggs. Bug hotels provide a little area to rest for some of our insects. Things like wasps, bees and flies will utilise the bird insect hotels in between flying from place to place, gives them a little bit of a break and allows them to move on to the next area. They also make great homes for things like spiders, and I've known ladybirds to nest in them over the winter. Planting all sorts of flowers in your garden will also help, whether this be wildflower or just normal standard flowers that you can get at a garden centre. It'll help encourage bees into your garden, and obviously they're extremely important pollinators that benefit the whole planet. Even just a few potted plants or hanging baskets will really help. Even if you live in a flat or apartment, there's still ways to help. Planting window boxes or putting a few potted plants on your balcony will really help the bees come in, and you can even get window bird feeders now that stick onto your window and encourage birds to come in. All these are really simple methods that just cost a couple of pounds but really benefits our urban wildlife. Whilst we're on the topic of birds, something that we all did as children will really help our native wildlife. Just simply feeding the ducks and feeding the birds whilst you're out. If you're going on a walk down a river or a canal, just take a bit of bird seed or some frozen peas or even some bread and just feed some of our ducks. There's a really big myth lately that feeding bread to ducks is bad, and whilst this is sort of true, it's better than nothing. Whilst bread isn't the most nutritious, it's still something for the ducks to eat. Things like frozen peas and bird seed are much more nutritious for them. Another thing we can do to help our urban wildlife is to report any unusual sightings. By unusual, I mean anything that's sort of out of the norm, something that you wouldn't see on a daily basis. It's worth reporting any unusual sightings or animals that you know are struggling to your local wildlife trust. This includes animals like badgers, hedgehogs, birds of prey, and maybe even red squirrels if you're in that part of the UK. It's also worth keeping an eye out for any invasive species. Things like the Asian hornet or Japanese knotweed are worth reporting to your local wildlife trusts and even the council so they can deal with it and get rid of them. If these invasive species stick around for too long and catch hold, then it can have really bad implications on our native wildlife. But as you can see, I'm currently down by the canal and this is a really good place to spot uncommon wildlife. In the not too distant past, otters were spotted in this stretch of the canal. It's also a really good place to spot rarer animals like bats and owls when the evening drops. So keep an eye out and report any unusual sightings you see, because you'll be really helping our urban wildlife. You could also take part in citizen science projects where you report animals like the RSPB Big Garden Birdwatch. Me and the other NatureScope boys did a video on the birdwatch, so if you want to check that out, I'll leave a link in the top left. Next, I'm going to talk a little bit about littering and recycling. Now, I'm sure you've all heard all about this sort of stuff, so I'm not going to go on for it for too long, but I'm going to talk about some things involved with it that you might not have thought about. One of the reasons I came down to my local canal is because I can show you how bad the litter problem is in my local area. What I'm really going to talk about is something I like to call smart recycling. Now what I mean by smart recycling is not only recycling what you can, but thinking about how you put it in the recycling bin. Now the main example for me that instantly comes to mind is tin cans. Rather than just opening the tin can, using whatever's in it and throwing it in the bin, I'll wash it out and then I'll crush it. Washing it out reduces the scent so it doesn't attract animals to your bins, and crushing it means that animals like hedgehogs and mice can't get their noses inside and potentially either cut themselves or worse, get stuck and eventually die. I'm sure we've all seen some horrible images of animals caught up in plastic. So if there's something you think that an animal could potentially get caught up in, just use a pair of scissors, cut it so that if the animal does come near it, it will be able to get out. It doesn't take much effort and it's just a really little thing to think about as you're going about your day. Whilst we're on the topic of litter, joining locally arranged beach cleans or town cleans is not only a really good way to clean up your local area, it's also a good way to help those urban animals. Finally, I'm going to talk about something that's a little controversial depending on who you speak to. This is about being smart with your pets. One of the reasons our wildlife is declining is because of cats. Cats are let out the house and kill an estimated 100 million small animals each year. So that includes birds, mice, rats and other things. Now you can't be angry at the cat. It's their natural instinct to do that. However, it might just be worth thinking about what you do with your animals when it's in some sort of breeding season. Same goes for dog owners. If you can't trust your dog, don't let them off in a park or a forest because they'll just run around and potentially harm some wildlife. It is strongly debated over how much influence pets have on our native wildlife populations. There's kind of two sides to the argument. If we let our cats out and our dogs run free, then they cause a lot of damage to our wildlife, their habitats and the ecosystem in general. The other side of the argument, if the dogs and the cats weren't there and humans weren't here, there'd be other predators that would also be killing the birds anyway. On the RSPB website, it does say that there is little evidence to show that cats killing birds has an effect on their population. It is worth keeping in the back of your mind that if you do have nesting birds in a tree in your garden, then maybe be a bit wiser with how you let your animals out. That's all from me today. Hopefully you learned something, or at least made you think about the actions you take to help our urban wildlife population. Now me personally, I don't really think about our urban wildlife as much as I probably should. Whenever I go out into the country, I'm constantly thinking about wildlife, but when I step out on my front door, it's not something that's in the front of my mind. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like. If you have any tips that could help anyone else, leave them in the comments and I'll highlight some of the best ones. Subscribe to Naturescope to not miss any more nature related content. Thanks again for watching and I'll see you all next time. Cheers.